When it comes to policing hateful and threatening content, neither Twitter nor Facebook have especially impressive track records. But now the focus is on another social media site, Gab, which has become a destination for the worst of the worst. Adam has more.
Before Robert Bowers was charged with killing 11 worshipers at a Pittsburgh synagogue, he gave a battle cry on Gab. "I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics. I'm going in." It was his last in a long line of noxious Gab postings.
The suspect posted about the infestation of Jews. He reposted calls for Jews to get out or leave. He promoted a conspiracy theory that it is Jews helping transport migrants.
So what is Gab exactly?
Gab is a crowd-funded social media site that launched in 2016.
By programmer Andrew Torba, who said he was responding to anti-conservative bias at sites like Facebook and Twitter.
Right now, conservatives, people on the right, Trump supporters specifically, are being shut up, are being censored, are being told to go away.
But if Gab is supposed to be a haven for free speech, critics call it a breeding ground for hate.
It is just terrible. The worst kinds of anti-Semitic, racist, sexist comments.
After Pittsburgh, Gab was booted offline. Torba says he's horrified by the Pittsburgh shootings, but he also sees himself as a victim.
And what I think is despicable is that the media, the mainstream media largely has been focusing on me, has been focusing on our website, and not focusing on honoring these victims.
And he wrote, "Ban us all you want, smear us all you want. You can't stop an idea." Meanwhile, not everyone thinks getting rid of Gab is the answer.
Now that it's gone, someone else could do the same thing.
Absolutely.
And chances are they will.
So, Adam, somebody is proposing to rehost them. I said, so this could be up themselves. But what do you think about that? I mean, if they're taken down, isn't something else going to come along and just replace it?
If they're taken down, I do think something else will. And it also bears emphasizing that the big sites that people think are being unfair to conservatives have a lot of issues themselves. Andrew Kaczynski from CNN found all these terrible tweets threatening violence that Cesar Sayoc, the pipe bomb guy, that he had made on Twitter. And people had contacted Twitter to say, hey, this guy's telling me to hug my kids before I go to bed. He's posting violent pictures. And Twitter didn't do anything about it. So they still have problems. Facebook has a problem. And if you get rid of Gab, someone else is going to do what they're doing. I don't know what the answer is here. Having said everything I just did, it's really troubling to me that there is a place like this that people go because they want to traffic in this stuff. We are in an era in which the definition of what's acceptable and what people are comfortable saying in some public venue, it's been expanded, I think, in a really troubling way. Racism is okay. Misogyny is okay. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I think someone else will do it if they go away, but I also kind of would like to see them go away.
But those forums have always existed. Before there was Gab, there was 4chan. There was parts of Reddit where really you needed eyewash and maybe shares in Purell before you could go back in there and just reading what was going on. Before that, there were other private forums that people would use to trade these ideas. There's the whole dark web, which it's used to traffic in things that are horrible and unsavory, and misogyny and racism's the least of it. So I think someone else will come back with something that is more accessible to users who perhaps don't want to deal with torrent browsers and other ways of accessing this content, but it's always there. And they call it an attack on free speech when people don't approve, but luckily the people who don't approve are always there also, so maybe there is some chance at moderation on some level.
I agree with Adam. I think it's such a thorny issue when you have free speech and the internet colliding like this. I mean, hate speech is protected speech. We know that. There have been multiple Supreme Court decisions protecting hate speech. The problem is when hate speech then preaches violence. And when you go on these platforms, they all have policies against violent speech, speech that promotes violence. The problem is they don't enforce it. And as somebody made a great point, 3 weeks ago I was shopping for a refrigerator. Refrigerator ads keep coming up in my feed. Why can't they follow hate speech? Yeah. If they could keep telling me about the refrigerator I should buy, please do some monitoring Twitter and Facebook and Instagram about hate speech.
Yeah, what I was going to say is a little bit of kind of what Lylah was saying about the dark web. I mean, there's stuff that's way worse than this. Mm-hmm. So what we're talking about is actually what we want to traffic in the public space in some way. And, I would like there to be some kind of way to have, I don't know, I don't want to go to the space, so that this guy who is leading this Gab space doesn't come back to me and say, you're infringing on my free speech, because that is not the point. And I don't, the definition of hate speech really veers into the illegal. So you have to be short of hate speech. It could be nasty talk. That's protected, I guess, is what the best way to put that, or horrible kinds of comments. But
it's when it goes into violence.
Yes, exactly. Now we're into hate speech. Now you're trafficking in an area where you actually can be, brought up on charges. So it gets dicey, because the question is who monitors and who says.
Yeah.
And there are many people who will say, and I agree with them mostly, the best antidote to bad speech is more speech. So there will be some forums in which some of this stuff is out there, and how we respond to it is what becomes important.
It's who monitors, and it's what are the guidelines.
Yep.
Twitter got a lot of heat recently when Louis Farrakhan posted that he wasn't anti-Semite, he was anti-termite.
Yeah.
Clearly an anti-Semitic, message. And what Twitter said was, this doesn't violate our terms of use because he's not singling out an individual, which to me suggests Twitter needs to get some new terms of use.
A lot of those terms of uses are there to protect the websites themselves, though.
It's
right?
It's CYA.
And Twitter's had a lot of issues around women issues too, by the way. So,
but I think a lot of people are forgetting that freedom of speech has to do with government stopping you from speaking, not private corporations, not your fellow man, not your neighbor, not your followers on Twitter.
And it doesn't mean that you have the right to not be criticized.
And
for
it
your
does
speech,
not
which
mean
everyone thinks it
does not mean freedom from repercussions.
I want to throw one last quick thing in here, and I want to read this. What happens when the free speech becomes violent speech uttered by your president, all right? Here's what he said, right? He's done this more than once. When he was talking about the minister of North Korea speaking at the UN, if he echoes thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer, all right? You've got the president of the United States threatening violence on Twitter. So, where does that leave us?
Well, we're in many conversations about what's constitutional and what's not. I mean, that's where we are. And he's driving it, by the way.
Exactly.